My name is Tom Watson. I'm 26 years old. I'll be graduating from college this year. It's not like I failed any of my classes and had to repeat a year. I just ended up graduating later than others because I spent almost 3 years studying abroad in various countries. My parents were quite passionate about education. They didn't stop me when I decided to study abroad. It seems like from a young age, they never got mad at me for anything as long as it was in pursuit of satisfying my intellectual curiosity. The reason I turned out a bit different from others might be due to this skewed approach to education. From childhood, I was drilled with advanced education, and it was taken for granted that I would excel in my studies. I always felt my parents expected something more from me. Maybe I decided to study abroad unconsciously because I felt stifled by them. It seemed I had a higher language acquisition ability than others. If I stayed in a country for a week, I would start to understand the language somehow. The sign that I could start speaking was when I began to dream in that language. The moment my dreams were no longer in Japanese, I would start speaking the language of that country. In this way, I learned to speak more than 5 languages. I really wanted to study more at universities abroad, but a situation occurred where I couldn't. My father passed away suddenly. I managed to return home in time for his funeral. On the night when my father's funeral rites were properly completed, my mother and I had a little drink together. Apart from New Year's drink, this was probably the first time I'd seen my mother drink alcohol. With my graduation looming, my mother looked at me seriously and said, "You are free to live your life as you wish." I was surprised by her unexpected words. I thought she agreed with my father's teaching to stand at the top of Japan as an elite. It seems my mother was considering my situation in her own way. Even though I went to study abroad of my own accord after high school, I was merely walking on the path my father had laid out for me. Suddenly having the path in front of me removed and being told to do what I like, I became confused. As a result, I couldn't make a decision about finding a job, and now I'd become a jobless. Every day, I think about the meaning of living as you like that my mother mentioned, but I don't understand it at all. I don't know what I want to do or what I want to be. And my mother just quietly watches over me. It seems like the world was patiently waiting for me to make a step forward with my own will. Then, one day, I found a sign. It was when I went to buy a sandwich at the convenience store in the neighborhood. There was a staff wanted sign on the glass next to the entrance. Apparently, the older lady who was always there during the day retired. I noticed she hadn't been around lately. I never experienced working part-time. Idly watched the movements of the store clerks from the entrance. It looked somehow fun. Maybe a job where you say thank you to people could be a wonderful job. That's how I felt. My mother's words crossed my mind. It's okay to fail, give it a shot. With that in mind, I decided to walk into the convenience store. When I mentioned the staff wanted sign at the counter, the manager came out from the back. He looked to be about 50, with a gentle and calm demeanor. I've never worked part-time before. There was no use hiding it, so I told him the truth right from the start. The manager nodded with understanding. He seemed to think I was a shut-in with no job, always aimlessly wandering around during the day. "It's good that you've decided to work. I'd love for you to join us. Can you start from tomorrow?" he said with a smile. By the way, I haven't written a resume at this point. The manager told me it was fine to bring it on my first day of work. Things progressed so quickly that it felt kind of scary, but just like that, I became a part-time worker at the convenience store. There were 4 part-time workers including me at the convenience store. Most of the time, I was at the cash register with the housewife from the neighborhood who usually came during the day. I didn't know what to do at all. But thanks to the careful instruction from the manager and the other part-timers, I quickly adapted to the work at the convenience store. I wondered if it might have been different at other convenience stores. I am truly grateful to everyone at the convenience store. Among the part-time workers, the one working the graveyard shift was Emma Miller, who was 6 years younger than me. At the store, I was the lowest ranking, while she was above me. Since she only works at night, she is known as the night lady. There's also Mary, a high school student who comes to work after school or on her days off. She's unbelievably cheerful and positive. Her parents are against her working. I think it's good that she has a spirit of independence, but it might be difficult to say the same if you're a parent. Long day, huh? Entering with a helmet in hand was the night lady, Emma. I instinctively checked the time. It's still just 8 in the evening, too early for Emma's shift in this heavy snow. What's going on? Isn't it too early? Emma replied annoyingly. Remember, I'm off today anyway. Seems like she was hinting at me to better grasp the shift schedule. Leaving a note that she had something to discuss with the manager, Emma quickly retreated to the back room. Remembering that I also had a matter regarding my shift to discuss, I left the cash register to Mary and headed to the back room. There were no customers at that time, so I figured it wouldn't hurt to be away for a bit. As expected, Emma and the manager were in the back room, discussing shift schedules. Manager, I also have something to discuss about the shift. My father's first Memorial Day is coming up, and I'd like to take the day off. The manager, who seemed to be arranging the schedule for the holiday period, assured me by saying, sure, and secured my leave. When Tom can't make it, I can cover, even during the day. Emma volunteered to work all of my shifts. She might seem blunt, but she does have a soft spot. I remember being a little scared when I first met her. With her short black hair and a thin silver necklace shimmering above her collarbone. Her beloved vehicle was a DX125. She was a veteran part-time worker at this convenience store. I bowed my head and thanked Emma. Just then, I heard a troubled voice from Mary at the front. Rushing to check, I found a few foreigners at the cash register. Mary was trying to communicate in English, but they seemed to be French speakers, not proficient in English nor Japanese. Both sides were stuck due to the language barrier. Mary, let me take over, I said, replacing her. Turns out, they were French tourists who were not good with Japanese or English. I lived in France for a while, so I am rather proficient in French. The customers seemed relieved to find someone who could speak their language. After helping the French customers, I turned to the entrance of the back room and saw Mary looking dumbfounded. Tom, you're amazing. Can you speak French? Her admiring gaze made me feel a little embarrassed. Then came a barrage of questions. About how many languages I can speak, where I graduated from, and etc. That's impressive. So you have study abroad experience. I dream of touring museums all over the world, she said, striking a determined pose. I need to work on my foreign languages. The wonderful thing about her is her resilience. She turns failures into learning experiences. As I watched her smiling, I thought it was a great quality. The next day, Emma, who usually worked the late night shift, showed up a bit early. She beckoned me from the back room. Tom, can you come here for a moment? For a moment, I was worried I was about to be mugged, but that wasn't the case at all. Hey Tom, would you mind teaching me a foreign language? At this sudden request, I let out a surprised, huh? Emma began to plead earnestly, her hands folded in front of her. I have a dream of going on an international tour, and I've been saving up for it. Communication is key when you're abroad, right? I didn't go to college and I never properly studied a foreign language. Emma says she's always struggled with studying. She mentioned that last night, after seeing me handle a French customer, she realized the importance of knowing a language. When you can speak the local language, you feel so much closer to the people there. I want to be like you, Tom. How could I feel bad about that? As long as it's within my knowledge, I can teach you basic conversation. So I decided to accept Emma's request. This is how I became Emma's exclusive foreign language tutor. We managed our schedules, and I started teaching her foreign languages, one after another. So, where are you planning to go first? I'm thinking of touring Europe. Saying so, Emma opened a website of a company that organizes international tours. She really wanted to buy a big motorcycle and travel on her own, but she lamented that it was financially challenging. The website showed videos of motorcycles speeding down winding roads nestled between mountains. It seemed exhilarating and rather enjoyable. Emma's eyes sparkled as she watched the video, and I found myself slightly envious. Let's start with German and English, then. When I said that, Emma nodded solemnly. It seems I'll be the superior one in the realm of foreign languages. The roles are reversed, and it somehow makes me feel proud. But then a serious problem cropped up as we began our study sessions. Emma is quite sharp and quick to understand. The problem was on my end. I was terrible at teaching. I had no idea how hard it was to convey something I understood to someone who didn't. I had an intuitive approach to learning languages, and I couldn't answer Emma's logical questions. Every time we studied, Emma would get frustrated and shout, "Explain it so I can understand." That's when our mediator, Mary, would step in. Tom is naturally gifted. It can be helped, but teaching someone something is also a great learning opportunity for yourself. Even when we were arguing and the atmosphere was tense, things would soften when Mary stepped in. She was truly a blessing. As we continued with our study sessions, I realized how out of sync I was with others. I had assumed that what I could do was something anyone could do. Maybe that's why I never made any friends. I realized how arrogant I had been, and I felt terrible, probably the worst I've ever felt. When I confessed my troubles to Emma, her reaction left me somewhat disappointed. "What, you're upset about that? Isn't that just a part of who you, Tom, are? It's not a big deal, really." She was so blunt that it made me feel stupid for being upset. Interestingly, no matter how much Emma and I argued, we would always be on good terms the next day. We seemed to get along in the strangest of ways. This was the first time I have never been so deeply involved with someone else, and I couldn't help but recognize that Emma was becoming increasingly important to me. Of course, I didn't have the courage to tell Emma about these feelings. The thought of being rejected was terrifying. One day, another incident occurred at the convenience store. That day, it was Mary and I who were on duty. The manager was busy working in the back of the store. I was getting advice from Mary about her future plans. The college her parents want her to attend, and the college Mary really wants to go to. These two just don't coincide, creating a tough situation, it seems. Mary wanted to persuade her parents, but it seems they hold the same elitist views about education as my father. Mary was upset with the ongoing argument with her parents, which is quite rare to her. I wanted to say something uplifting but was at a loss for words. The silence was broken by a couple who rushed in with great urgency. They made a beeline for the cash register, standing right in front of Mary. "Mom, Dad, why?" It turned out that the couple who had rushed in were none other than Mary's parents, who we were just talking about. Apparently, Mary lied to them about quitting her part-time job. "Mary, you said you quit your job. What's going on? You should be focusing on studying for your college entrance exams." Saying this, Mary's mother grabbed Mary's hand over the counter. She seemed intent on dragging her home. "Please, calm down. Can't you see that Mary is upset? Why don't you have a more constructive conversation about her future?" Upon hearing my words, Mary's mother gave me a fierce glare. "What do you know? You're working a part-time job at a convenience store at your age. Did you even go to college, or did you graduate from a third-rate college? Her words were dismissive, which riled me up. But I didn't want to brag about my own education in such a situation. Doesn't Mary have a wonderful dream? Why do you oppose her trying to find the fastest route to achieving that dream? Mary's dream is to visit art museums around the world. Her ultimate dream is to study art history at university and become a museum curator. It's a truly wonderful dream. I passionately explained this to her parents. But Mary's mother snorted in disdain. If Mary fails her college entrance exams, will you take responsibility? What if she majors in art and struggles in the future? Do you really think she has enough time to change her college preferences now? Cornered by her words, I was momentarily at a loss for words. Looking at Mary, she was looking at me with pleading eyes. Seeing her look, I steeled myself. Got it. No matter what college, I will get her accepted, I declared, and Mary's parents stared at me as if I were a strange creature. Understood. We'll let you try, but you only get one shot. Allow Mary to apply to just one school of her choice. If that doesn't work out, you must follow our instructions. Mary's father, who had been silently listening to our exchange, spoke calmly. Perhaps he wasn't directly opposed to Mary's dream. I promise, I answered, looking straight into Mary's dad's eyes. Mary's mom seemed to want to say something, but her husband gently urged her to leave. Having talked a big game, I ended up tutoring Mary from the next day. Between my part-time job and tutoring, plus helping Emma with her foreign languages, my days suddenly became busy. Is Mary's application going to be all right? I only graduated from high school, so I don't know much about the application process, but isn't changing your preferred school at this stage a lot of work? Emma, who had been reading a German book with a dictionary in hand, asked me with a hint of worry. I think it'll be fine, I responded. Still, while the application process should be okay, I believe it's crucial to have her parents' cooperation to realize Mary's dream. Well, you have to take responsibility and convince Mary's parents. She makes it sound easy, but I wonder if I can actually pull it off. You know, my dad was the same way, always telling me to study and become an elite. After he passed away, I had no idea what to do. Embarrassing, huh? I said, scratching my head. Well, I kinda expected that. You do give off a pampered golden boy vibe. Emma chuckled. What do you mean, pampered golden boy? I felt a bit annoyed, as if I were being mocked. It means you were cherished. It's a good thing. I wasn't sure if she was complimenting me or mocking me. Either way, I felt embarrassed. You look cool when you're working hard. Her comment made me even more embarrassed, and I hid my face behind the magazine I was reading. Seeing my reaction, Emma chuckled again. As for Mary's exam results, they were a tremendous success. She was accepted into the art college of her choice. What's more, her grades were among the top and she was chosen as a scholarship student, which would cover half of her tuition. Mary's parents finally admitted defeat. They both apologized to me, and her mom thanked me while crying. That was probably the first time I revealed where I had gone to college. Everyone present was so surprised that it caught me off guard. Mary successfully took the first step towards her dream. Now, it's up to her how she paves her way. That's probably up to Mary, I guess. On the other hand, Emma got a big motorcycle. She mastered German, English, and French, and is getting ready for an international tour. Watching the two of them closely, I was taken aback. I'm the only one who's been pacing in the same place. Everyone else is moving forward, but I'm not making any progress. Suddenly, I felt small and insignificant. Every night, I lay in bed and ponder what I want to do most until I fall asleep. And yet, I never come to a conclusion. I'd rather solve math problems than this. Seeing my day-by-day depression, Mary approached me with a concerned look. I decided to consult Mary about my situation. I wondered what the ever-optimistic Mary would say. Nervously, I awaited her response. Why does it have to be about what you want to do, rather than who you want to be with? I think that's what they mean when they say revelation. It's not about what I want to do, but who I want to be with. Being with that person might be what I truly want. I felt like I'd arrived at an incredible answer. Good evening. As usual, Emma, the night lady, arrived for work. Seeing Emma, I was struck by a sudden realization. On impulse, I called out to her. Can I ride on the back of your bike? I want to be with you." Suddenly confessing, Mary let out a surprised squeal. Emma looked bewildered. Her eyes were wide with surprise. I'm not sure if you understood. This isn't an invitation for a road trip. I like you and I want to be with you." As Emma froze with a bewildered look on her face, I attempted to explain myself more clearly, but was stopped by Mary. She scolded me harshly later for lacking delicacy. Emma sighed lightly and gave a wry smile. "It's fine to be together, but work on being able to ride your own bike." That was Emma's response. The tips of her ears peeking out from her short hair were bright red. "I'll do my best," I promised, scratching my head. "Handle it with care." That's me, getting onto Emma's beloved bike. At the convenience store parking lot, she asked if I wanted to give it a go. Without thinking, I blurted out, "Really? Is it okay?" Straddling Emma's bike, I revved the engine. Experiencing its vibration for the first time, I was fascinated by its power. I'll enroll in driving school tomorrow. I was all fired up from riding a big bike for the first time. I couldn't wait to control a motorcycle all by myself. See, you've found what you most want to do now." Mary, triumphant as if her theory had been proven right, was smiling. I had to admit, she was spot on. Change your perspective, and a new scenery comes into view. When you hit a wall, think of another way around. It's a simple thing, but I found it challenging. 2 years later, Mary began touring art museums around the world while studying art history in college. She said she was investing all the money she saved from her part-time job into her future. As for me, I kept reliving that vibration. In the midst of landscapes I'd never seen before, all I could hear was the sound of my motorcycle's engine and the noise of the wind. Emma led the way. She skillfully used her slender body to maneuver her big bike. I struggled just to keep up with Emma as she showed off her fluid cornering. But I was happy to be able to see new scenery together. Our destination on this journey is Milan, Italy. When we arrive there, I plan to kneel down to her. I've decided on the words for my proposal. "I want to follow you for the rest of my life." Emma might be a bit taken aback. She may sigh and say, "Just ride freely," with a smile. Or maybe she will blush, her ears turning bright red as she looks away, trying to hide her embarrassment. Just imagining gets my heart racing. Milan is still far away. The end of this journey will be the beginning of my life with Emma. I believe in that.